guys, Comic Boom here to talk about Bendis and why Bendis' Superman run is underwhelming and give at least 10 reasons why. There are undoubtedly more than 10, but I just thought I'd round it off to 10 because it's a nice round number. And I also read the last issue of Bendis' run on Superman. That was Superman issue 28. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So, what are the top 10 reasons? Well, I've outlined them here really straightforward, and these actually are not in any particular order, really, although I did put the dismantling of the Superman family right at number one there, because I do think that's probably the number one thing that he did, which has upset most of us Superman fans. But even from a writing perspective, and from just breaking down how he chooses to write and put forward his ideas in a story, it just leaves much to be desired. And I can give numerous examples of that, and I'll be giving examples of that as we go through the list. So starting at number 10, the fact is, Michael Bendis writes Clark Kent, writes Superman like a loser. And why does he do that? Well, I don't really know, but I do know this big idea of having Superman reveal his secret identity. Well, when he revealed his secret identity to the world, it was never really made clear as to why he chose to do that. Now, I know Bendis probably thinks he did do that because Superman had a conversation with Adam Strange, of all people, way out in the middle of the galaxy during a whole Rogol Zaar fiasco, which was another terrible story, but bad, underwhelming villain, of which Bendis is, quite frankly, he's made a name for himself with DC with underwhelming villains, hasn't he? In any event, after a conversation with Adam Strange, Superman decides that he's going to reveal his secret identity to the world, because I guess in his mind, there's no reason to keep it a secret anymore, even though it would obviously protect the ones he loves and has for many, many years, even though revealing his secret identity would compromise the identities of numerous other heroes, Wally West, Barry Allen, Bruce Wayne, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. But remember that Soup/Clark is a loser. Remember, he's a loser. And that's one of the reasons why he is a loser. It's related to number 7 as well on the list. Superman is dumb. He is dumb. Bendis writes Superman as a loser and dumb. Now, another way I want to approach this is that Superman is sort of like the macho guy, right? Clark Kent is always sort of the meek and mild type. The meek, mild, really likable guy, right? But Superman, at a minimum, people could rely upon Superman for being a little bit aggressive, tough when he needs to be, nice guy, but tough. Nice guy, but has principles and values that he doesn't compromise. That's Superman. Unfortunately, the moment Superman revealed that he was Clark Kent, suddenly Superman became meek and mild like Clark. It didn't make Clark Kent Superman, if you get my meaning. The worst aspects of Clark Kent became embodied in Superman. It didn't make Clark Kent more confident. It didn't make Clark Kent more confident in who he was. There was no actual character difference between how Clark Kent portrayed himself or even how he was seen or perceived by the supporting characters around him. That is the abject failure of Bendis' approach to Superman. Bendis bragged about how it was going to lead to all these storytelling possibilities, and it didn't. Superman revealing his identity to the world, now that we know he's Clark Kent, Superman is now as boring as Clark Kent as opposed to Clark Kent being potentially as exciting as Superman. It's a bore fest, And since I alluded to it already, let's jump to number 7. Superman is dumb. He makes dumb decisions. The revelation of his identity to the world was dumb. It was also, let's go to number 8. Superman is dishonest. Now, how is Superman dishonest? How is Bendis' Superman dishonest? Because Superman is not honest with Lois about how he feels. He lets himself get walked on. He actually had to go to Dr. Fate. Who? Dr. Fate. Which Dr. Fate? Khalid Nosur. He had to have a conversation with Khalid Nosur to confide in someone he barely knows, who frankly he doesn't know. Even Khalid Nosur. Dr. Fate was stunned. Why are you talking? Why are you asking me for advice? I'm barely out of my teens. You're asking me advice? And Superman's asking him advice and tells him about all the stuff that's gone on in his life. Because remember, Superman's life is a mess, right? He loses his son to Earth 3, comes back, his son's 7 years older, doesn't seem to bother Lois much. There was a one-liner where she sort of says she misses her kid, and then barely gets his son back. Then he has no problem with letting his son take off to the 31st century. In fact, they're so loving, this family. Lois and Clark and their son John, they love each other so much, they don't care that they never see each other. How's that for a family, huh? They never care that they ever see each other. John Kent's in the 31st century. Lois lives in Chicago, in a hotel room in Chicago, while Clark lives in Metropolis. Why? Because that's their lifestyle now. That's their lifestyle. You know, Lois has a sit down with Clark and tells Clark, you know, Clark, I really think it's a good idea that apparently I live in Chicago and you live in Metropolis. That's what Bendis scripted. Now, of course, Bendis's dialogue is atrocious. If you read that issue with Lois had this big talk with Clark, it's amazing how Bendis, through horrible dialogue, manages to convey absolutely nothing. At least with bad dialogue, it's a consolation that if it's going to be bad, at least if it reveals something, it's helpful. But there's never any, we learned nothing about Lois other than the fact that she's a bitch. We learned nothing about Clark or Superman other than the fact that he lets Lois dictate how he feels about his son, how he feels about events, how he feels about her, how he feels about everything. Heck, yeah, I mean, heck, even the final issue here has him doing the Mary Poppins things with Lois. Why? Because that's what she wants. It was actually a nice scene. He's dancing with his wife. Mary Poppins dancing in the air. How lovely. Unfortunately, he's still spineless. Superman, Clark Kent, however you want to view him, he's now one. He's boring and he doesn't stand up for himself. And he doesn't express how he really feels. He doesn't seem to care that his son's in the 31st century. He lets his wife rule everything. He gets walked on by everyone. I don't know what Superman stands for anymore because Superman himself very clearly does not know what he stands for. And further example of this is, and let's bring this into another one. Lois is unlikable. Lois is unlikable. I already mentioned number 4, the terrible dialogue. Lois is unlikable. Why is Lois unlikable? Well, she's actually a little bit more likable lately. Now, how does Lois become unlikable when written by Brian Michael Bendis? Lois becomes more likable when she's not in a scene. That seems to be a pattern there. Characters that aren't in Bendis' stories aren't as annoying because they're not in the story. If they're in the story, they somehow find a way to become annoying. But Lois in particular is just one of those characters who she just, you know, in this vain attempt to show that to overcompensate, because you need to prop Lois up because she's non-powered. You really got to make her out to be a really smart reporter, even though she's quite frankly really dumb. That's one thing she has in common with Superman. She is also dumb. The only time she comes across as a smart reporter was when she was written by Greg Rucka in the 12-issue Lois Lane series. Thank God we got an intelligent Lois Lane. At least in that series, Lois Lane was one of the first characters of the DC universe to figure out that all the people of the planet were essentially experiencing different lives from different timelines in the multiverse. So at least she figured that out, albeit with the help of the Renee Montoya. But in any event, Bendis, Lois Lane under Bendis is just unlikable. She tells Clark the way it is. She calls him baby. She's got doesn't seem to care about her son. She lies to Clark. She was in Metropolis for weeks. Didn't bother telling Clark, her husband, that she was around. She just doesn't seem to care particularly much. And it's really deeply depressing. And she also nonsensically supported the decision for Clark to reveal, for Superman to reveal his identity, which was nonsense. It shows an indifference, and for some people who purport to care and to try to help people, to endanger the lives of your friends and families and allies by revealing the secret identity of the most powerful superhero on the planet that has more enemies than anyone is just plain abjectly stupid by any stretch of the imagination. But let's continue. Bendis also disrespects continuity. Now, when I say disrespect continuity, that's probably incorrect for me to say, insofar as that might presume that there was ever a time that he respected continuity, which of course he did not, and has never. Now, sadly, he's purportedly read a lot of Superman history before he started his Superman in Action Comics run, but he didn't. He disregarded the fans. He misread the tone in the room. And of course, the number one thing he did was he aged up Jonathan Kent. And we had an entire 1 year of a Rogolzar storyline for the sole purpose of getting to the end of the Rogolzar storyline. It took a full year of Superman, a full year of Superman, and a full year of Supergirl to tell the Rogolzar storyline, only to have it that Rogolzar was captured, and Rogolzar was not punished. He was just, I guess, we don't know what the fate of Rogolzar is. We don't know nothing about Rogolzar other than we ended up knowing that he was Kryptonian. That was it. And all for the express purpose of having John Kent make a passing reference to unity and apparently inspiring the 31st century so that John Kent could go to the 31st century. And that's ultimately where Rogolzar ends up as well in the 31st century, leading toward a Great Darkness saga. So, the destruction of the Super Sons, the aging up of John Kent, which indirectly leads to, I would argue, harming Damian Wayne as well, the elimination of the Super Sons, the wasting of an entire year of Superman stories that went nowhere, wasting a Supergirl series for an entire year that went nowhere, and for what? Just to get John Kent in the 31st century so Bendis could pat himself on the back and say, job well done. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It was a terrible storyline. Rogolzar is the most uninteresting villain of 2020. It's the most uninteresting villain in well over a decade at DC. The character has no substance whatsoever. We learn nothing of substance about Rogolzar. Why does he want to destroy Krypton? Never, none of this was revealed whatsoever. And incidentally, Naomi was a 6-issue series, and of course, that was also terribly written. We know nothing about Naomi as well in 6 issues. It's overhyped, but it's at the CW network, and that's great. Identity politics all the way. Let's prop up that character, and now Bendis is writing Justice League, which of course is going to be led by Naomi. I'm sorry, it's going to be led by Green Arrow. Temporarily, I am sure. Naomi, I'm sure, soon will lead the Justice League. Why? Nothing against Naomi. Naomi's actually a likable character thanks to David Walker's influence and great art by Campbell. But the reality is here is that when you prop up a character, you have to build it organically. If you just prop up a character, you're not going to get anyone's attention. But hey, AT&T, all the power, corporately push that new character that nobody is interested in. And quite frankly, I don't see a CW show going to be helpful because CW ratings suck. And CW, who really reads CW? I watch CW. When I watch a CW superhero show from DC, I generally play a drinking game. Every time a man apologizes to a woman on the show, I have to drink. And I'm usually drunk by the first commercial. That's the truth. I've said that before, and I'll keep saying it. But hey, who knows? Maybe it'll get better. Jeff Johns' Stargirl's not bad. But let's continue. Bendis' plots make no sense. I just talked about Rogolzar an entire year. Rogolzar, Superman, Supergirl, Superboy, chasing Rogolzar around the galaxy. And for what? Oh, and General Zod, through the galaxy and through the Phantom Zone. Even the Earth ended up in the Phantom Zone, and then nonsensically somehow got out of it, thanks to the Atom, a shrink ray. Plots make no sense. For what? Kandor was destroyed. For what? This big Kandor, the bottle city of Kandor, destroyed. Rogolzar ultimately found and then just defeated, and we find out no secrets. How does that really make a lot of sense? And even if that does, Superman stops the bad guy, stops the bad guy. There's now a united planetary system set up with the Thanagarians and Earth and the Tamarinians, etc., etc. Okay, so we've led to that. We now have the United Planets. Okay, so then what's the overall theme here? Okay, so they're trying to capture Rogolzar leads to the formation of the United Planets. Okay, so now that we get there, now we got to punish Jor-El. The United Planets' first job apparently was to punish Jor-El. Why? Apparently because he violated time travel. Okay, so they send Jor-El back to when Krypton exploded. They don't consult with Superman, the guy who actually saved the day, saved them all from Rogolzar. They don't consult with him. They just essentially execute Jor-El, his father, who helped capture Rogolzar by sending Jor-El back in time to die when Krypton exploded. Okay, and what punishment did they inflict on the Legion of Superheroes who just nonsensically, these teenagers just showed up in the 31st century to prop up and to steal John Kent to bring him to the 31st century? They're not punished at all. No punishment whatsoever for them, right? What sense does that make? Well, you know, there's rules of time travel. The United Planets have got rules of time travel, right? Except they're only followed when Bendis needs them to be followed. And then, of course, we jump to the 31st century, and the Earth's been completely destroyed, and they're rebuilding it. So thanks to Bendis, who has written the future, we know through the Millennium series and the Legion of Superheroes series that, in fact, the present-day heroes fail, and that Earth is ultimately completely and utterly destroyed, requiring it to be built from scratch in the future because of the failure of modern-day heroes. The Age of Heroes ends in abject failure. How do we know that? Because Bendis told us that. Thank you, Bendis. Thank you. DC, no hope, no heroes, no happy ending. Unless you want to go to the 31st century where they're rebuilding the Earth from scratch because they have to, because our heroes in the present day utterly failed. Thank you, Bendis. All right, so number 1, dismantling of the Supes family. I already talked about that. Supes is dishonest, not character-driven. You know, the funny thing is that if Bendis understood what these characters, maybe these stories would feel character-driven, but they're not. These are plot-driven exercises. The entire first year of Superman was plot-driven to get from point A to point B. Point A was take young Jonathan Kent, and point B was an aged-up Jonathan Kent and creating the Legion of Superheroes, or his inspiration, to get him out of modern-day DCU. That was point A to point B. And he took an entire year to do that, encompassing actually 24 issues of Superman. It was published twice a month. And I believe it was at least 12 issues of Supergirl. So 36 issues to go from point A to point B. And while he was at it, ruined Earth 3, miswrote Ultraman. Apparently, Superboy spends 7 years in a volcano being psychologically tormented by Ultraman, somehow escapes, and isn't affected at all by Ultraman. So young Jonathan Kent psychologically is bombarded with mental abuse in a volcano for 7 years by the most evil version of Superman you can imagine, suffers no ill effects, comes back to this time stream, our main time stream, and he's aged up, and he's just looking all great, and he doesn't really care about spending a lot of time with Dad or his mom, Lois Clark. He doesn't really care. He would probably prefer staying. John Kent aged up now. He'd probably prefer staying at Earth 3, right? It was probably more fun. Maybe he had a little bit. Maybe he got a girlfriend there. We don't know what happened there, but it was probably fun because when he came back, he couldn't escape fast enough. As soon as John Kent got back to the DCU, he was probably so depressing what had become of it. He decided, you know what, screw this crap. I'm going to the 31st century because there's this good-looking blonde-haired Saturn girl. I might as well get laid in the future as opposed to being depressed in the present. That's exactly what he did. And can you blame him? Hey, if I had Bendis writing my life, I'd want to escape to the future too, right? But anyways, guys, that's my top 10 reasons why Superman is just plain underwhelming. And as a final note, let's talk about Utopica, Sinmar Utopica, another villain introduced by Bendis. And I wish I could tell you something about him, but I just can't because there's not much to reveal. Because Bendis' dialogue, to compound, to make it even worse, I don't even know what Sinmar Utopica was trying to do. Apparently his planetary system is hidden, and saw 25, 30 years ago when there was a rocket ship from Krypton taking Superman to Earth, and they somehow deduced that Superman, young Kal-El, was going to be a powerful Superman, and therefore they created their own superhuman power superhero who apparently became bad and decided to attack Superman, and he dragged Superman to Sinmar Utopica. And the planet is called Sinmar Utopica, and the hero is called Sinmar Utopica because Bendis is out of ideas? I don't know. Makes no sense. Made no sense. Also, Superman apparently needed to he needed a change to his costume to defeat Sinmar Utopica. I don't get it. The Sinmar Utopicans are in an odd place in the galaxy somewhere that nobody has heard of until they have heard of them. So they were supposed to be a mysterious race, but then the Thanagarians and the United Planets Force shows up to help Superman. So even though they're not aware of the Sinmar Utopicans, suddenly they are when it fits the plot. Again, this is the plot-centric writing of Bendis. None of this is character-driven. None of the plot points in Superman and Bendis' Superman, none of them have been character-driven. They've not flowed from decisions that the character made. They come from plot devices pushing the matter forward, including the revelation of the secret identity. You might think that, well, wait a minute, Superman decided to reveal his secret identity. That was a decision that a character made. Doesn't that character decision drive the plot? And I would argue that, well, on the surface, yes, but it's clearly forced. Why is it forced? Because the character of Superman would never be so stupid as to reveal his secret identity to the world, because it's the most intimate and private aspect and secret that he has. In fact, his bond with Lois Lane was premised upon his revelation of who he was to Lois. That's why he loves Lois. He revealed that secret to her of who he is. Only those closest to him know his secret. Now that he decided to reveal all of himself to the world, now none of the people close to him are special anymore. That's why Lois doesn't feel. That's why she's an offshoot. Isn't it interesting that the moment Superman reveals his secret identity to the world, Lois doesn't care. She'd rather live in Chicago while Clark lives in Metropolis. Jonathan Kent doesn't even care about him. He's in the 31st century. And his supporting cast, what the hell's Jimmy Olsen doing? I don't know. Ask Matt Fraction. Did anybody read that series, by the way, Jimmy Olsen? I did. The 12th issue was okay. The other 11 issues, I don't know. Maybe one day I'll read them. In any event, guys, that's it. I'm done. I'm out of here. Hey, hit the subscribe button. Try to have a Merry Christmas despite this video. And until next time, Comic Boom out.